Quick favor. Please drop your city and age in the comments so I can understand my audience. Thanks for the support. The bell over the shop door chimed like a small warning. Lace smelled faint and sharp. Perfume cut through steam from hot coffee somewhere in the street. Light pooled on mirrors. Satin lay like quiet promises. My sister Olivia spun in front of the 3-panel mirror. The dress flashed and swallowed the room. My mother Linda dabbed at her cheeks with tissue. Olivia, you look perfect, my mother Linda said, voice full of proud softness. The words hung like holly on a door. My name is Claire Mercer. 2 weeks before this morning, I opened my banking app and felt the floor tilt. $78,000 had vanished. The number had once been a promise, down payment money, emergency cushion, months of careful saving. It evaporated into a string of transfers during a business trip I took to Charleston. I remember the phone buzz and the cold that teased the back of my teeth. I did not have a meltdown in the dressing room. I chose a quieter tool, evidence. I kept my palm on my phone under my coat. Marcus Hale, a private investigator, texted at noon. Documents collected, meet at 2. That message felt like a lantern in fog. I walked into the shop and watched my sister laugh like a coin skimming water. Claire, don't be ridiculous, my sister Olivia said, fingers smoothing a bead on the bodice. She wore her calm like a well-worn glove. I'll pay you back. I promise. The word promise sounded thin. My mother Linda smiled at the reflection as if the mirror blessed the day. This will bring us together, my mother Linda said, as if plastic and glass could glue relationships. The idea of bringing together felt like erasing the ledger behind our lives. I touched the fabric at the hem. It felt strange against my palm, silky and wrong. I mouthed my question once, a soft shell of a thing. Olivia, did you take money from my account? My voice was small but steady. Her smile did not crack. Passwords are weak, Claire, my sister Olivia said. You should not use birthdays. She said it as if giving tech advice. I felt something in my chest twist. The world outside the shop smelled of heat and jasmine. I left before I spoke louder. Marcus's office was on the 2nd floor above a cafe that smelled of espresso and sugar. He handed me a manila folder like an offering. Screenshots, timestamps, vendor invoices. Your sister logged in from her phone near the florist twice, Marcus said, tapping a line. And your mother's device shows approval of a transfer. The paper felt heavier than the folder had any right to be. Each line was a quiet accusation. I listened and let the facts fall into a careful structure in my mind. I did not want to be the sister who screamed into the room and lost the argument to spectacle. I wanted the ledger and timing to say the thing that anger could not make clear. Marcus said we could move fast or slow. I chose slow. I chose the wedding day. Outside, Savannah light went gold over oak branches. The city hummed like a distant engine. I slid into my car and thought about months of late nights. About the first time I had opened my savings account and felt proud. The plan was a small cold flower opening in me. I would let evidence, not rage, stage the scene. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and the faint caramel of burned sugar on the stove. Picture frames lined the mantel. Faces pressed into glass like postcards. My father Robert stood at the sink, hands in dishwater, pretending not to see the packet of papers on the table. Claire? My father Robert asked, voice aiming for casual. We just want everyone to be happy. His words slid across the counter like a placemat. I spread the bank printouts across the table under the lamp. The numbers looked small and honest under the paper's glare. My mother Linda picked up a sheet and her hand trembled. Olivia said she would pay you back, my mother Linda said, her voice pinched and low. We thought we were helping. Her explanation had the brittle feel of old pastry. It did not hold. Did you know how much she took? I asked quietly. I wanted candor, not excuses. My mother Linda looked away and folded her hands. No one thought she'd take that much, my mother Linda said. We thought it would be a loan. The words landed with a clack. Favoritism had teeth. That evening my sister Olivia phoned with a practice tone. You're making a scene, my sister Olivia said. You cannot ruin this for me. People will judge us. She used the threat like a shield. Jason's parents will be upset. She wrapped status in the word parents like armor. I had saved quiet nights for things that mattered. She treated social standing like currency. My father Robert tried to smooth the edges with phrases. "We must focus on family." He said it like a benediction. My cousin Lena texted, "Let's not make a scene." The house, for all its smiles, carried a pressure. Marcus sent a short note. Vendor confirmation matches, device logs show family IPs. The trace continued like a map. That night I sat on the back steps and felt the air press close. Fireflies blinked near the garden. I thought of forgiveness and calculated whether it was deserved. I felt a small tenderness for the child Olivia had been. Scrapes on knees, lemonade stands, but tenderness did not bill my rent. I brewed patience into a plan. I decided to use timing as a remedy. Slow and precise is sometimes louder than a shout. Marcus's office smelled like stale coffee and old reports. He spread printouts like a cartographer laying maps. "Look at the funneling," Marcus said, pointing. Payments route through vendor A to account B, then to another vendor who invoices back to Reynolds Catering. The pattern was a braided rope of falsity. Each receipt devoured an honest line of my life. My sister Olivia had built an image of abundance that required props. The floral company invoices, the custom cake, the rehearsal venue, my money paid for all of that. Marcus slid a photograph across the desk that made my stomach drop. It showed Nathan, the fiancé, slipping into a sedan after leaving a small chapel in a neighboring county. He waved like he belonged to two worlds. Marcus said, "He keeps lanes." The lane meant he had a life and transactions separate from the Reynolds image. We listed options. Confrontation in private could buy me shame or silence. Legal action could be slow and expensive. Public exposure could be messy and irreversible. Marcus favored timing. "When they feel invulnerable," he said, "exposure lands hardest." I thought of their polished faces at a ceremony. That was the point. I spent a night poring over emails, cross-checking timestamps, matching receipts to images on vendor websites. The ledger read like a novel of theft. A log on our mother's phone showed a confirmation by a device labeled Lindo iPhone. A florist deposit matched a transfer that left my account. The betrayal was procedural, not passionate. It had the quiet efficiency of someone who'd practiced erasure. I considered legal counsel. I called an attorney named Paula Jensen. "If you want restitution, we build a paper trail," Paula said plainly. "Timing can make the narrative. If they contest, we show transaction chains, vendor confirmations, and device logs." Her voice had the blunt edge of a surgeon. Fit my plan. Marcus recommended waiting for the ceremony. Paula agreed that a public reveal, properly documented, would not be theatrical. It would be decisive. I set parameters. Evidence must be airtight. No ranting. No ambush. Let the facts stand with clarity. I slept a little that night, with the folder at my bedside like a small talisman. The estate glowed with tints and white chairs. Oaks held strings of small lights. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and sunblock. I dressed in the bridesmaid dress Olivia had picked. The blue fabric felt like irony against my skin. Makeup artists fuss with brushes and powder. I moved through the motions to keep my face ordinary. My cousin Lena pressed a mug of tea into my hands. "You look pale," my cousin Lena said, concern clear. She set a hand on my shoulder, a small steady anchor. "Are you sure you want to be here?" she asked. I nodded and kept the plan like a folded piece of paper in my mind. The ceremony had a rhythm and I would catch the beat. At 2:30 I sent Nathan a short line, "We need to talk." It felt like dropping a pebble into still water. He read it and stepped out onto a balcony as if the sun burned. At 3:15, Marcus delivered a slim envelope under Nathan's door. Inside were photos of transactions, timelines, and names that matched vendor invoices. Marcus had printed copies and left them in a sealed packet for Nathan to find privately before the vows. The idea was not to shame without choice. It was to let him face his connections. In the bridal suite, my mother Linda hovered and murmured about appearances. "Think of the family," my mother Linda said. The phrase pressed like a hand across my mouth. I let it fall away and breathed steady. The plan required calm. I rehearsed each movement like a short script. Face, breath, step, hold. Outside, crew members adjusted the floral arrangements. A caterer rehearsed a tray pass. The venue manager checked the license plate of parked cars. The minute details felt like stage directions. I watched vendors wheel in a chandelier and felt the irony of my money backlighting their acts. It was almost beautifully tragic. As the hour neared, Marcus tapped my wrist and mouthed, "Ready." I folded my hands and thought of the ledger. Screenshots, timestamps, approvals, and how they would speak without me screaming. That was the plan. Not spectacle but clarity. The hush before vows felt like a held breath ready to break. The quartet began playing. Guests rose. The aisle filled with faces that mattered and faces that only watched for spectacle. Olivia walked with a smile that had been curated for months. My father Robert walked beside her, steady, proud. The world felt like a slow camera panning in. When it was Nathan's turn to speak, he halted. He looked at the rows of faces and then at Olivia. "I can't do this," Nathan said, voice breaking like thin glass. Silence fell, heavy and stunned. Olivia's smile cracked first into confusion, then raw panic. "What are you saying?" my sister Olivia asked, voice high with a tremor she could not hide. Nathan named a woman who stood up, stoic and steady. "I'm Angela," she said. The air shifted. Marcus stepped forward toward the lectern and placed a sealed folder there. He did not theatrically throw papers. He set them gently, with a gravity that demanded attention. He looked at the crowd like someone marking a page. "You did this." My sister Olivia lunged, eyes wild. She tried to reach me as if blame could land like a hand. "No," I said, voice even. "You did this." Marcus opened the folder and laid out invoices that matched my bank statements. Each document had a timestamp, a vendor name, a payment ID. The room read these like a headline. Murmurs rose. Vendors in attendance scanned their own confirmation emails. Someone in the rear checked a note on their phone and then leaned forward. The venue manager, worried for liability, called the police quietly. Officers arrived and spoke to the couple privately. Conversations broke into pockets of disbelief and anger. It was not cinematic, it was mechanics and truth. My sister Olivia screamed about being ruined. Her words were raw and small. My father Robert stumbled between denial and grief. The Reynolds family's composed mask slipped. The guests scattered into arguments and whispers. The wedding shine dulled quickly into paperwork. The ledger had spoken. The room rearranged itself around the facts. The days afterward smelled of bleach and paper. Legal notices came in envelopes. Nathan withdrew. The Reynolds faction scurried to protect what remained. Vendors filed claims. Olivia faced restitution suits and a fraud charge that turned polite calls into required depositions. "What have you done?" my mother Linda asked me one afternoon, her voice small and exhausted. "I did what I had to," I answered. Repayments began trickling back into my account under court orders. Not enough at once, but enough to mend structural things. I rented a small townhouse with light streaming into the kitchen in the mornings. It felt honest, a place where I could breathe and not measure who I'd disappointed. Some days, the grief for my sister's downfall rose like sea spray. I visited her one afternoon at a rehabilitation job where she folded towels. She looked older in a way I'd never expected. "Was it worth it?" I asked, sitting across from her at the break table. She looked at the seam of her uniform and then at me. "Maybe," my sister Olivia whispered. Her voice had the smallness of someone learning consequence. I felt pity and a steady sense of rightness. Public opinion fractured. Some friends messaged support. Others turned away. The Reynolds name faded from our social invites. The town whispered, then moved on as towns do. I rebuilt carefully. I dated quietly and met someone who stayed for dinners rather than flashes. My savings grew again with slow steadiness. My mother Linda apologized in a voice that was not theatrical. "I'm sorry I didn't see," she said over dishes. Apologies did not erase the ledger, but they started new pathways. The family conversations became less performative. Maybe that was a healing of another kind. A year later, the photograph on my wall showed a backyard dinner with friends and mismatched plates. String lights hung like small promises. I had my modest savings rebuilt and a key to a quiet home. The wedding dress had been sold to pay debts. Olivia showed up on holidays now, smaller and more tentative. People asked if I regretted the exposure. "Did you miss being the peacemaker?" a cousin asked over coffee. I thought of late nights and careful budgets. I thought of the small joys that were nearly taken. The truth is, I miss quiet evenings of saving and planning, not status. I did not miss the lies. When I met Olivia one cooler morning at a coffee shop, she looked at me and said, "Claire, I don't expect forgiveness." She reached out a hand that trembled a little. "I need to learn," my sister Olivia said. I squeezed her fingers simply. "I want you to learn," I replied. No grand absolution. Just that sentence. My life acquired a different rhythm. I kept the files in a drawer, and sometimes opened them to remind myself of what happened. The drawer closing sounded like a chapter ended. I had demonstrated that patience can be a muscle. Evidence can be louder than accusations. Justice, when delivered carefully, does not have to be vindictive. I tell this for women who sit with their facts, who think the quiet cannot speak. Sometimes slow, deliberate truth reverberates louder than a scream. You can choose timing. You can choose dignity. You can let evidence be the instrument that resets the accounts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to Revenge Veil. Thanks for watching.